Hello and welcome to the Rangers Rabble Academy Review number 7. Today I'm joined by Derrick. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, William. Yourself?
Aye, all good, mate. Just struggling with this well, like everybody else, I'm sure, but we'll hopefully get through the next 20-30 minutes without passing out with the heat.
Sweaty.
So basically, we'll have a wee run over the pre-season games. Unfortunately, the games against Clyde and Burnley were both closed door, so there was no access to watch those games, but obviously we can talk a little bit about them. Then we're going to look at Josh McPake signing his new contract, as well as Ben. Look ahead to the bonus opening league game in the Lowland League. We'll add in a few other pieces as well throughout the podcast. Hopefully you guys look forward to that. Okay, let's crack on. Edinburgh City, Derrick, what did you make of the 1-0 defeat in the first pre-season game of the season?
Well, obviously it was disappointing. I was hoping them to kick off with a win. Edinburgh City are not the worst of teams. You know, they had a half-decent season last year in SPL, the League 2, sorry. So, again, always disappointed to lose a game, but it was a decent test for them at the first pre-season. And it's all about minutes in the legs at this stage. You want your results to get better as you progress, which obviously we'll come on to. But it was obviously disappointing to start with defeat, but as I say, it doesn't seem to have affected them too much going forward. And they're probably just getting used to playing against men, if I'm being honest with you. You know, because Edinburgh City, I'd imagine, would try to put a bit of strength into them and get the ball in the corners. So it looks like they've adapted as they went through the game. So again, it won't do them the world any good, any harm really, losing that first game, William.
Yeah, look, obviously being at that game was great. Obviously, I hadn't been at a game for 15 or 16 months, so it was a bit surreal kind of standing there watching the game. I mean, it was obviously, you know, it started with the big American in goals, Aaron Cervantes, and it was Adam Devine, Robbie Fraser. They had a trialist playing at centre-half. They're obviously looking at maybe bringing in some new players.
Yeah.
And, Kyle McClellan, Mackenzie Strachan, Jake Hasty, Cole McKinnon, Robbie York, Charlie Lindsay, and Aaron Lyle. So, I mean, it was a reasonably young team that played that day against what was a pretty big and pretty strong Edinburgh City team. And I think you're right. You know, the first kind of early stages of the match was good. We started well. But then, like you saw, the kind of physicality and the power that the opposition had, and maybe we kind of dropped a little bit at that point. But then I thought we'd get our second wind in the second half, which I thought was important because like you bring on the guys who are quick, who can, you know, get beyond the defenders. And I think that'll be one of the interesting aspects of the Lowland League, is maybe like the impact players that we can bring off the bench, like a Tony Weston, who looks like he's going to be a complete pest, Tony Weston, you know, playing on like the last defender. And if anybody tries to play a high line against Tony Weston, they're probably going to get caught out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see his kind of impact, you know, coming off the bench. Okay, we'll move on to the Albion Rovers game. A 3-1 victory. Obviously, we did fall behind in that game. What did you make of the response for the players?
Well, great response. I think they learned a lot from that Edinburgh City game. What I've seen, highlights, etc. And they moved the ball a lot quicker for longer periods. And they were clinical when they got the chance. What I've noticed is the team's quite settled, you know, in terms of 11 and 16s that are getting on. So that can only be a good thing. And hopefully that's a sign of what they'll do in the Lowland League, because I really think they'll need to get... You see youth games and, you know, it's a lot of chop and changing. But against Albion Rovers, again, probably they tried to do it the same as Edinburgh City. But the Rangers were just too good for them on this occasion. I thought that it was a great response for them, and definitely I've seen improvement from that to the Edinburgh City game.
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I totally agree, I thought we moved the ball a lot quicker in that game, which, like, it shows the difference. You know, the quality that we've got with the 17 and 18-year-olds in particular will be a big thing for me at that level. Because as long as we can show our quality, I do fancy us against most of the opposition. There clearly will be games. I mean, I think we spoke previously about somebody like, you know, sort of East Kilbride, who will be a very, very strong team. You know, they've got a lot of, you know, guys that have played in the leagues before and stuff like that. So that's going to be a proper test. But I think against a lot of their teams, like that game against Albion Rovers, kind of showed little glimpses of how we can play and how we can hurt the opposition. You know, the first goal, I think it was Jake Hasty, managed to win the ball back, and he played it through for Tony. And yet again, as soon as Tony's through on the goalkeeper, I felt very confident he was going to put it away.
Yeah, I think you're really right about Tony Weston's pace, but as you say just there, you've mentioned his quality in front of goal. Usually you get strikers of this age, either one or the other. They can either finish or they'll get the pace, but he seems to have them both. And you've touched on East Kilbride. I watched them a couple of weeks ago against Beith Juniors, or Beith Breathe FC, as they're called now. What you need to be doing against East Kilbride is exactly what they've done against Albion Rovers, is getting the foot in the ball and showing that you've got the better quality. Because East Kilbride were organised, they worked hard, obviously, and Durant's in their bench, so they know how to play football as well. But the thing is, if we get a foothold in the game and move it quickly, they shouldn't be able to cope with us in terms of fitness, because these boys are training full time, and East Kilbride aren't. So we need to really make sure that we take that to advantage.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on, and that will be something, as I said earlier on, I think like the impact players off the bench could be really pivotal for us this season, because if games are tight after 60 minutes, if we can look at the bench and look at maybe like a Robbie Ure coming off the bench, for instance, or maybe like an Alex Lowry or a Tony Weston or an Aaron Lyle, when you can bring on that extra bit of pace, that extra bit of quality, it might just be the difference between a draw and a win.
Totally,
and I think that's going to be something we will see throughout the season. And I thought one of the bigger things in that game was, like, the width in that game was important. It was important that the right players get into the game and that we try to stretch the opposition. The more that you can stretch the opposition, the more tired they're going to become quicker. And especially with the part-time players, so that should be a real benefit to us, don't you think?
So that's it. So I'm not decrying part-time footballers' fitness. It's really top-notch for what they do. But at the end of the day, they are only training a couple of times a week. And they've got full-time jobs. So what we should be doing is making that pitch as big as possible and making them move. Defenders at this level will want everything in front of them. Easily defended high balls. We need to make sure we're doing the opposite. And what I really loved about watching, especially in the Clyde game, was the fact that our full-backs were so high. We were really, really taking the game to them on the front foot, which was fantastic to see, because I know we'll come on to that and I'm sort of jumping the gun, apologies.
No, that's fine.
But the way we play in terms of high intensity in the first team, you could really see that in the B team. And that was great for me. The club identity seems to be going right through the age groups, and it needs to be so apparent in this Lowland League games, because, as I said, defenders, they're good, honest players, and they want to defend. We need to make sure we drag them all over the place and make the pitches as big as possible.
Yeah, look, I think that was the one thing. The Clyde game, obviously not getting access to it, you can only obviously look back at the highlights and try and pick out the bits from the game. But I think for me, the big thing was, again, we obviously fell behind in that game against what is probably a step up in class from the team we used to. Mm-hmm. So, the players could have easily just crumbled at that point and just said, look, we're probably going to get beat today. But, you see the character in the team and, you see the quality. The first goal is a very good goal and a lovely finish for Aaron. And yet again, there's Robbie Ure, somebody that I think will have a good season. Somebody we'll talk about later on in the pod, because he's certainly one of the guys that I'm going to pick out ahead of this season. I think Robbie could score quite a lot of goals at Lowland League level, and I think he's more than good enough to be a real big player at that level. Okay, just quickly moving on to the last game, obviously, the Burnley game that was played earlier on today. The Rangers won 4-2 thanks to Jake Hastie, Robbie Ure and Charlie Lindsay. Obviously, we've not managed to see any highlights or anything like that. And it looked like Burnley had a lot of trialists in their team. But do you think it's important just to carry on winning games ahead of that Lowland League opener against Bo'ness?
Winning's a habit, William. It doesn't matter who you're playing. And Burnley, no matter who the trialist was, would imagine would be another step up from Clyde. And that's not any disrespect to Clyde. It's just the players wouldn't be on trial at Burnley if they weren't of that level. So, I mean, getting the result and winning 4-2 quite convincingly, looking at the updates, obviously that's all we've seen. It was good to see. Lovely to see Robbie, you're getting another goal, because goal scoring's also a habit. So it's really good. And Charlie Lindsay getting a notch in a goal can only bode well for Saturday's game. Confidence must be high to come off the back of a defeat, to win 3 in a row against higher league opposition that you're going to be playing week in, week out. Then it's great to see. So fingers crossed to take that into Saturday, and they're confident and they go and take the game to Bo'ness.
I mean, just obviously, sort of moving on to that now, moving on to the Lowland League, the opening game. What's the difference then between these 4 pre-season games and what Saturday brings to the table? Is it just a totally different game against a team who, at the end of the day, most of that squad has only played under 18 football? They're now going to play competitive men's football in the Lowland League. What do you expect to happen on Saturday? Do you think it'll be like a very physical start to the game that Bo'ness might try and ruffle them up a little bit? Or do you think that it's just a matter of us getting our foot on the ball and just playing football the way that we have all pre-season?
So there'll be pride at stake for me, for Bo'ness. I think there's no team in that Lowland League will want to get beat off an under-20s team. In essence, is what it is. We're kind of slightly younger than that, but that's where we are. So there'll be pride at stake. Now, with pride, they'll become, they might be a bit rough enough. They might be trying to put players off. But for me, this is perfect for our boys to show that they deserve to be at Rangers, because there's that expectation put on you from day one walking through the doors that you need to win games. So it doesn't matter what Bowness do on Saturday to try and put the young boys off their game. They've got to stick to their principles, pass the ball, and not give them an opportunity to do that. I feel like they can do well in this league. I feel like they will do well. And Saturday's probably, a perfect chance. Bowness will be probably mid-table to top of the league, I'd imagine, when it all said and done. So it'll be a real good test for them, and hopefully one they can come through, because again, as I've said previously, winning's a habit. Getting that first 3 points on the board and your first real competitive action in adult football, then it'll be brilliant for the squad and the manager.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've obviously watched these guys now for like a year and a bit. Obviously, a lot of that's been kind of throughout the pandemic as well. So like, you've only been kind of catching the highlights and stuff like that. So it's not been easy. But I think the one thing that you see, even just from the pre-season games, is there's a lot of character in that team. And, there certainly isn't any fear amongst, that group when they go out to play. And I think the big thing for me is, see, even if they were to fall behind on Saturday, I don't think there would be any fear. I don't think they would think, that's the game over because we fell behind. I just think they've got so much about them. And it'll be interesting to see the starting 11, because as you said earlier, there's not been that many changes overall during, the first 4 games. They've made like 1 or 2 changes to allow trialists some minutes. But overall, it looks like they've got an idea as to what the starting 11 is going to be, and they've been working on it in training. So to me, it should just be a matter of ticking over from the pre-season games straight to the Bowness game as well. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. The consistency in the lineup was the first thing that I noticed when I was doing a bit of reading for the pod here. It's great to see that they've obviously got the games in mind. They've got not a small squad, but they've got a concentrated squad that they've had to work with, and that might work in their advantage. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the outcome was on Saturday. I think it'll be a good gauge of how the season's going to go on it, and I fancy us to get the win.
No, I feel the same way. I do think that we can start off the season with a win. And obviously, I mean, it's a quick start to the season, because I think it's like Saturday, Tuesday. Yeah. So, that's something the boys are going to have to get used to, because in the main with the under-18s, it's just every Friday night. So there's always a week between most of the games, whereas they're now going to potentially play, those 4 games in about kind of 10 days or so. So it's certainly going to be a different type of game. And all 4 games are going to be different games as well, because, the opposition will maybe look at us after the first game and see something and think, well, we'll change that up against Rangers, because we're not going to allow them to maybe feed the ball into Charlie Lindsay. We're not going to allow them to get the ball in behind. We'll play a deeper line. So these are all things throughout the season that, the players will need to cope with. It's a bit like the first team, isn't it? Are you going to come against some teams that will play 4-5-1 against us, and they'll say to you as well, you come and break us down? Is that something you think we're going to see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I think that it's a bit of an unknown for the Lowland League teams. They don't have the analysis teams that we do, although it is getting much better the last 3 or 4 years. So you're right, they'll be looking for highlights this Bowness game to see where our Rangers B team at, because friendlies are friendlies, and you can watch them all day, all night, but you really get a good gauge where we are on Saturday. I think some teams will fancy it against us. There's some really good football on sides. As we've seen Celtic Hearts come through the leagues who play decent football, and a few teams that are in at the bottom leagues at the moment that have, passed their way. Cove Rangers, for example, who have passed their way to get into the league. And so there'll be teams like Bonnyrigg and a few others, East Kilbride, that will maybe try and get the ball down. But I think there'll be a lot of eyes on the Bowness game on Saturday to see what Rangers look like.
I mean, just kind of quickly, I know it's like sort of deviating slightly, but in terms of like the Spartans away game, do you think that's going to be a slight shock? Because obviously most of the away games for the 18s, there's maybe like 50 people at the games. Mm-hmm. What's it going to be like playing Spartans on the Tuesday night? In the main, it's going to be Spartan supporters. So what do you think the players will need to expect from that kind of game?
I think there's a lot of hate towards Rangers. I don't think that will stop just because it's a B team. So they need to deal with that. They've maybe, as you said, played up at the training centre, in front of their mums and dads, and and that. So this is all part of growing up for me. getting some abuse. They will be getting a few choice words, I'd imagine, that we've all heard before. But listen, it's make or break for me for some of these boys. And also you've got Jake Hastie about the squad. You've got Aaron Lyle, who's been on loan to Inverness. So there's experience there as well, who can hopefully help the boys who have played in front of crowds and maybe took that a bit of abuse of being a Rangers loanee. So I think they'll cope with it. They need to cope with it if they want to beat Rangers, William, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's, for me as well, I think like the players will just laugh it off. I think, obviously, maybe the first couple of times when you hear the first couple of things that guys say to you, it might seem like a bit, that's not something I would have expected to hear at an academy game, and it's not something you would hear at an academy game. But as you say, you're stepping out over the white line now in a competitive game. So you've got to expect everything, whether that's the crowd giving you a bit, whether it's the opposition players maybe using the old-fashioned tricks that we've seen over the years in many games. And these are things that's, it's all about learning. And see if the players learn over this whole season and, every single one of them become better players because of it, then it's been a total success.
Definitely.
Because the one thing this season is going to show us is, how do the players react to a loss? How do the players maybe react to something that happens in a game that's not happened before? How do they cope when maybe they're a couple of goals behind? Do they have that ability to fight back? It's all of these things that we're going to see more of over the season, because there's always been a criticism that maybe 18s football at times can be too easy. And this team has obviously won the league, and I think that was our third season in the top one in the 18s league. So I think there is that, we do need to take the next step. We do need to see how the players can cope at this next level, and I think that's the exciting part of the next, couple of weeks. Okay, we'll just kind of skip on to something slightly different now, and it's some of the players that have obviously went out in loan. First up, Josh McPake signs his new deal until 2024, and straight away goes out and loan to Morecambe in League One. What did you make of that move, Derrick?
Great move from him to Morecambe. Obviously, a step up from where he was playing at Harrogate last season. Don't want to be dramatic, and I've said it already on the pod. Make or break season for Josh at Rangers for me. I think if he goes down there and scores some goals and gets some assists, there's a place for him in our first team squad. I've mentioned before the previous pods I've done with you, he can win a game on his own with a bit of magic, and you can't buy it, but in terms of a young player, it's great to have. You can't teach it. So we'll see how it goes with Josh, but I think that it's a great move for him in a very competitive league.
It's really important for Josh that we obviously, get him out in this loan and to make sure that it's massive for the first team next season, because that's got to be the development. You don't give a guy a new deal until 2024 and send him out in loan if there's not a hope or an expectation there that he's going to come back and be part of the first team. So for me, that's massively important. Ben Williamson, obviously, we've spoken about Ben a few times previously. He had a great spell at Arbroath. He's now signed a new contract to 2023 and went to Livingston. What did you make of that move, and is it something you think is obviously the next obvious step for him?
Great move. He's done well in the Championship. He's got a move up to the Premier League. Great move for him, and his new contract as well. So he done so well up there that obviously David Martindale's seen something in him as well. So I think it'll be. I think it's to show Gerrard that you can do it is training well and playing for the B team is one thing. Going to Livingston and having 20 to 25 appearances and actually getting 7 out of 10s in the same league that you are going to be asked to compete in for Rangers is the next step in Ben's development for me. Sort of like a Stephen Kelly. I'll come back to that. He's went to Ross County. He showed what he can do, and now Gerrard's having a really, really good look at him this pre-season, and he's shining for me, and it's been brilliant. So I see Ben maybe not as good, maybe not as high a prospect as Stephen Kelly, but I see it very similar. I see him going to Livingston and hopefully having a good year under a decent manager and a decent side. Top 6 at the end of the day last season. So brilliant for him. I mean, brilliant move for him. He can really shine and show Gerrard what he can do. And he's on the telly every single week for Gerrard to watch. So it's a great move for him. Absolute fantastic move for him.
No, I mean, it's certainly, I mean, it's obvious, to me that yet again, a bit like Josh, they've gave Ben the extended contract. So there's obviously a degree of, we think Ben's got a future. And then obviously to get him out and loan to a Premier League club, very similar, as you say, to what Stephen Kelly's had to do, the Championship, then the Premier League. It'll be great to see Ben. And when you look at how Livingston play and how the manager is, it just seems to be another great fit for Ben.
Yeah.
He obviously went to Arbroath. He worked under a bit of a different type of manager, you could say.
Yeah.
He's obviously a character, Dick Campbell.
Yeah.
But, David Martindale strikes me as a character and somebody that isn't afraid to speak his mind. So, if Ben isn't doing it, I think, he's certainly the sort of guy that will tell you you're not doing enough. But then if you're doing really well, I think he's also the sort of guy that will praise you. And
I think the same with David Martindale. I think if you work for him, he'll give you everything he's got.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of mentality he's got, and that's the way it should be. And these are great learning experiences for these boys working under these different managers. Arbroath to Livingston to Auchenhowie's all get different aspects and qualities and different experiences, shall we call them. So this is brilliant for his development. I can really see him kicking on, and I can see David Martindale also trusting him to play, which is a big thing.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me. He's obviously seen enough of Ben to think, I want to bring him in. Mm-hmm. Because it'd be easy, let's be honest with it, there's probably a lot of guys out there that are free agents this summer. Due to what's happened over the last year, there might be some clubs who are not going to spend the same amount in wages. Yeah. There might be a lot of extra players getting cut now because of how it works down in England with the salary cap and stuff like that. So I would imagine it would have probably just been as easy for David Martindale to go and sign somebody for England. Mm-hmm. But he's seen Ben in action last season. He's been impressed with how Ben played at Arbroath. He obviously made his breakthrough for the Scotland under-21s and he scored a goal. Mm-hmm. And now Rangers have given him a new contract.
Yeah, brilliant.
So everything is sort of boding well for Ben, and hopefully for the club and for Ben, this is another good season. And it just pushes him onto that next step. Just looking at sort of the final part, just want to wish Nicky Hogarth all the very best at Nottingham Forest. Really pleased for Nicky. One of those lads that, he never let anybody down when he played, for the 18s or the development squad. He's had several good loans, probably his best one at Cowdenbeath. And now he's got this 2-year deal at Nottingham Forest. I really hope it works out well for Nicky. All the best, mate. Hopefully you get a lot of regular games with under-23s and then see what happens after that. Just looking ahead then, to kind of start in 11 and Saturday, who are you looking forward to seeing? Who should the supporters be excited to see?
Well, we're just talking before we come on about Leon King. I don't know if he's going to play in the Lowland League, but I'm hoping he even plays till he gets a loan deal higher up sorted. So Leon King would be one. Charlie Lindsay, I mean, the day we signed him, I must have looked at one of the montages and I thought to myself, what a player. And since he's came to Rangers, to be fair to him, he's done the same again. He's been an influential scoring goals, and again, he's scoring in these pre-season games as well. So there's just something about like a boy from Northern Ireland playing for Rangers that you just drive to him. Obviously for Stephen Davis, and you want him to do well. So I think they should be looking at him. There's also some exciting talents as we go through the midfield with Aaron Lyle. Alex Lowry's a fantastic ball player who people should be watching and getting excited about. I think there's at least 6 or 7 players that will stand out in this Lowland League.
Yeah, mate, I'm the same. I think somebody like Alex Lowry is going to be exciting. I think his technical ability at that level might upset a few guys potentially, but that's the good and the bad side of it. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jay Hogarth in goals. Because at the end of the day, you always want to see how keepers are going to get tested. Is there going to be a lot of high balls into the box? Is he going to get put under a lot of pressure for set pieces? Because you're going to come up against guys probably 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". There's going to be some big boys in that league. So it's going to be a real test for Jay to see how he copes. Because I'm sure some managers will be telling their players, let's get a little bit about this goalkeeper. Let's see how he copes.
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm.
A bit of that. For me, because of how important the fullbacks are in our team, I'm looking forward to seeing how Adam Devine and Robbie Fraser do. Because a big part of how the Rangers first team play is through their fullbacks. Cool. And I think it's going to be as important for the B team to do the same. I think if we want to get, forward with the ball, if we want to be aggressive, it's important that the fullbacks offer us that. And a bit like yourself, the obvious guys are there. Aaron Lyle should be an exciting player because he's very direct, he's very quick. He'll look to take the fullbacks on constantly. It'll be interesting to see how obviously Mackenzie Strachan does. He's quite a young lad. He's quite kind of small, but he's a very good ball player. He's somebody that will just look to move the ball. You can obviously get Cole McKinnon, who's been out on loan at East Fife. He played some games for East Fife. So I don't imagine playing in the Lowland League is going to worry him at all. No. And obviously Charlie's the kind of, he's like the one I think that a lot of people have spoke about recently. I don't know how many people have obviously seen Charlie due to what's happened in the last year, but I think there's going to be a degree of excitement around Charlie, and it's probably something he's going to have to get used to if he's not already used to it. Because at Rangers, when you sign somebody of Charlie's calibre, and obviously the talk at the time was that a lot of other clubs were interested, but Rangers managed to get him in, I think people are going to expect a big season from Charlie.
Yeah.
And it might not happen straight away in the Lowland League, but you do feel that over the season, Charlie's, what would you like to say, the stats that people look for now, Charlie's assists and goals should be of a good standard.
I would say so.
End in the Lowland League season.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We've had a wee bit of a chat prior to the pod, so we've kind of put a starting 11 together to see what we think. I think at the moment, Alex Lowry's got a slight injury, so I don't know how that is going to be for the weekend. Obviously, the club don't let us know these things, so we're just guessing that he'll be back. So between the two of us, we've went for Jay Hogarth in goals, Adam Devine and Robbie Fraser at fullback. We've both agreed at the moment we don't think Leon will play, so we've went for Kyle McClelland and Lewis McKinnon. Yeah, again, two big, strong centre-backs, guys that are good on the ball as well. The midfield three would be Paul McKinnon, Mackenzie Strachan, Charlie Lindsay. A midfield three, but Charlie could probably push up and make it a 4-2-3-1 rather than a 4-3-3 at times. And if everybody's fit, it would be Alex Lowry and Aaron Lyle wide and Robbie Ure through the middle. I don't know about you, but that sounds like an exciting starting 11. What do you think?
Certainly going to set up to get goals anyway. That's a definite. So fingers crossed that's the case, and we'll be too fast and too fit for Boness on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've already got my ticket sorted out, so really looking forward to the game. We'll hopefully do another pod maybe after either the Tuesday or the Saturday game next week. We just need to try and work out the times of when we can do it, because obviously everybody's busy. People have got other lives to lead. We'll try our best, guys, to get the 2 or 3 pods per month. Really appreciate you obviously checking us out again. If you can check out RFC Youth Updates on Twitter, let us know what you think of the games. Let us know if you thought we played well, if we didn't do enough, who played well. We can talk about it on the next pod. Really looking forward to the Lowland League season starting. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you all again soon. Cheers.